Hi, friends. Welcome to the second episode of Entrepreneurs of Bharat podcast. Today we have Suhas Dwarkanath with us, and thanks Suhas, firstly, for coming on our show. And this is a show where we want to have the real conversation, I say, and real setup. And very specifically, we are targeting bootstrapped founders, understanding their journey so that our audience understands or gets a sinks into them in a way what it takes to be an entrepreneur. And it's not that the rosy picture out there, it's not just about funding, it's about solving that real problem, the passion. Again, before I go into the other topics when we discuss, and uh, before I even talk about your entrepreneurial journey and about yourself, could you tell us about what is it for you with coffee? Is it a emotion or is it something else? And then probably talk a bit about yourself.
Right, absolutely. Pawan, first of all, thank you so much for having me on the podcast. It's such an honor, and you considered me worthy for being on this podcast. That itself is a really cool thing. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Well, going back to your question, right? So, what is coffee? How did a little bit about history as to why I got into this business itself, right? Maybe we'll answer that question. So, this is way back in school. I used to cycle past the second cafe coffee day that had opened in India, which was in 7th block, Jayanagar, Bangalore. So every day I cycle past it, and then this is where all the cool kids in the city used to hang out. All the rich kids and the cool kids used to hang out in Cafe Coffee Day. It was the place to be. So I used to save up pocket money for 2 weeks and then go hang out at Cafe Coffee Day. So I had made up my mind when I was in school that this is what I want to do after the traditional double degree that Orthodox South Bangalore family expects out of their son, right? So I said I'll do my double degree and then open a coffee shop. That was the end game. So that's when the dream started. Coffee, I never knew coffee had, there was so much of science to coffee. I didn't know coffee was made using a coffee machine. I just thought it's you press a button and then you get coffee, right? So, but then the dream started there. So I would rather say I was cafe passionate to begin with, and then coffee became the main aspect later on. Once I started researching about how to run a cafe, how to start one, when I moved out of the country, that's when I got exposed to the global cafe culture and the coffee culture. And I said there is so much more to coffee than just running a coffee shop.
Wonderful, Suhas. I think I want to talk about your background, but again, as you told, right, taking the context out of what you told, right? For a South Bangalore, I'm a born South Bangalorean. Uh, when you talk about a South Bangalore, a filter coffee in the morning is the fundamental thing. Okay, in this age of health, diet, and all, we start with hot warm water with turmeric, lemon, and all this thing, but it's still the filter coffee that brings about. Can you tell a bit about your background in terms of your growing up days? And where do you felt that the trigger of entrepreneurial journey, not being an entrepreneur, that personality trait, because it's very important, right? I see a lot of cliche dialogues, or when I see podcasts or interviews or whatever, like, hey, I see after you achieve it all, it's very easy to say, hey, I faced that problem, I faced. Because as an audience, when I wanted to be an entrepreneur, I was looking at a lot of stuff in the online, listening to people, observing people. Only when you see it is when you have that experience. So whole idea of the conversations that I am having even with you is to understand that trigger moment, and probably everyone will have a different trigger moment, but there will be a pattern to the trigger moment, right? That passion part of it. So a little bit about your background, Suhas. Yeah.
Sure. So I do come from a business family. My great granddad was a businessman, a really good one. But my granddad chose not to do business. He was a government employee. He was a judge, a district judge, and then he retired. Dad wanted to take the same footsteps, but then he never did get into law. He started his own business after doing a couple of jobs. He had his own business. He used to sell office stationery. He used to have a store. for as long, like forever, right? From when I was born, he used to have a store in Jainagar itself. And that's where probably I thank dad for my entrepreneurial acumen and skill. It's because of dad. I can remember as early as when I was in fourth standard, fifth standard, I used to man the shop. I used to be behind. It was a small shop. You know how the old Bangalore shops are. There are two people inside the store. You go ask for a pen. You go ask for a paper. We used to have photocopying at the store. So I used to man the shop. Because dad used to go for purchase, he used to go out to the market, he used to do purchases every afternoon for the store, etc. So when he was not around, I used to be at the shop. So that's where the entrepreneurial journey started. I did really enjoy selling, interacting with people, helping them find the right solution, and all of that. Dad wanted me to join the business for sure, but then I wanted to do something more bigger.
Do you feel, Suhas, see, for example, I am an IMB Bangalore graduate, I've done a boot camp in MIT. What we don't learn probably is the virtue of observing patients or the amount of interactions. Do you feel that sitting in a shop day in and day out, you're sitting, it probably is a boring activity to do it for a long period of time. If I put myself in that shoes, do you think is these are some of the aspects that probably an entrepreneur would need to experience, which cannot be taught in books or
100%. I tell my sister, right, like my sister's kids, nobody has yelled at them, right? Like other than mom and dad, of course, outside nobody has yelled at them. They have not been embarrassed. They have not been embarrassed in the sense embarrassed in public, right? They have not been exposed to so many other challenges that like a different set of views that come in when you interact with people outside other than your household. So that I think shapes an entrepreneur over what he has studied or his family background. Because time and again we see rags to riches stories. People from the streets become multi-billionaires. That is because they've had all sorts of experiences very quickly. And I strongly believe that is the more number of experiences you have with people, because at the end of the day, any business is just people, right? So more experiences, good and bad, you have with people, is more successful you'll become.
a lot of people ask me, Suhas, in terms of how do I cultivate that mindset, or where do I decide to take that step? Would be good for our audience to understand from your perspective what made you start Benki Cafe, and also if you can also talk about why the name Benki, which means fire in Kannada for the audience.
So Benki Coffee is my second business. My first business was in Dubai. I used to sell equipment in Dubai. I exited that business in 2014, and then 2017 I moved back to India and I started this company. We never were meant to be a coffee shop. So we opened our store in Jainagar again, South Bangalore boy. I wanted to stay here close to home. So I opened a office on the first floor. We made the office look like a coffee shop, right? Because I wanted to have an interaction with my customers who have come to buy equipment from me in a cafe setup. So people just assumed that we were a coffee shop. And they started walking up. They used to spend a couple of hours asking, what does this equipment do? What does that equipment do? And then I used to end up brewing a lot of coffee and serving to them with no return at all, because these were just neighborhood passerbys who just came down and then wanted to see what's new. So then eventually one evening, my wife and me, we drove to the market. We bought a blackboard. She drew 8 beverages on it without licenses. We just opened the business. Then we applied for the license the next day because it was a Sunday. So we just said, I've had enough of serving free coffee. So let's just charge people for it. And then if someone is really interested, they would pay for it and then talk about the equipments that we are selling and the training that we are selling and the services that we are selling. So that's how the cafe started. And of course, I really wanted to open a cafe all my life, and then that sort of fulfilled both of my dreams. So I was manning the bar then.
So it's a dichotomy, right?
Yeah.
I say there is a need of a patience, but there is a need of a bit of urgency also to do it when the trigger comes, right? Again, to introspect on this part, right? When you say that you wanted to sell your equipments, but you wanted coffee as a background for this, right? This is not something that you would have strategized with some marketing people or with some come up with in a whatever workshop or something. This thought came to you probably and you did it, and then you started it free and then started charging it without understanding the consequence of whether once you charge, whether more people will come or less people will come, and probably uh, without knowing whether the equipments will get sold more or less.
Correct.
Now, how do you look at it, right? See, if someone wants to do any kind of a business, D2C business, or I think probably in Bangalore, at least between Jayanagar, JP Nagar, or even Indira Nagar, right? A lot of cafe shops are getting opened off late. Do you think this thought process of how much do you think as a person when you start off, especially when you started? I think there are global giants already there. They would have already been sourcing different equipments, right? How much do you think of the end result when you start, and how much do you want to do it with a blind spot? This thing. How did you go about that process?
Yeah. So
And what was that confidence that you had? Like there is specific problem that I am solving, and hence let's try this out.
So couple of things I kept in mind, right? Like I never think long term. I think at the moment what is going to work, and then build slowly. And it has always worked for me from the beginning. Solve immediate problems. Back then, like when we started the cafe, there were two things, right? I was serving coffee for free, spending a lot of time. So I wanted to save time. Number one, to do more things, and second thing, we were out of money. Both my wife and me together, we probably had 90,000 in our bank account, both together, right? Because we had literally put everything that we had into the business, both of us. So we didn't have money, so we had to make money somehow. So it was a thought that came up, the plan that came up for the moment, for survival to begin with. And the other thought I had was specialty coffee was there, like third wave had opened. Good friend, the owners are good friends. They had started 6 months before us. They were doing phenomenally good in Kormangla. They had the audience for that for sure. But however, I said all of my friends in South Bangalore have visited overseas or are living overseas. Their parents have visited overseas. They've gotten exposed to the Western coffee culture already. So where would they go? Right? They will have to travel to Kormangla because that's the only specialty coffee shop that was there in Bangalore when we started. So I said this has to be a sure shot business. Right? This has to have potential. That was my other reasoning, that South Bangalore people will come, and it was right. So we were open from 3 p.m. to 10 p.m. because I used to come 7 a.m. and then do all of my other work. If there were trainings, if there were meetings, I used to finish by 3, and 3 o'clock we used to open doors of the cafe. And we used to do the same numbers as any other normal coffee shop that operates from 7 to 10. Used to do in half a day. So that's how we started off.
See, when you tell this, right, been in corporate for long, and I was just telling Rohit the other day, and I was probably one of my mentors had told this. Oh, and the best advice I give you is don't take too many advice. Go to the market, learn from the market.
Absolutely.
So probably if you had done a GTM, market size, SAM, and all, right? I don't think you would have started this business.
No, absolutely.
You had seen with the experience and took a plunge and you do it, right?
Correct. Absolutely.
I think there's a monotonous approach to life, business, the way world is. Some people try to change it and then they become. See, I was talking to one of my board members and investors, Vijay Ratna Parke, is Southeast Asia president of Bosch, and I was telling him, I was talking to Suhas, and he was telling me, like, Pawan, see, look at someone like a Steve Jobs, right? After he's passed, now looking at the current status, people comment whether he was right, wrong, and all. We do not have so much of time in to start analyzing everything. Sometimes you have to take the plunge. If you fail, you fail. That's it. Life doesn't end. So I think before we go into the topic of challenges and everything, the part Benki, what made you to brand it Benki? Yeah.
So my native is Tarikere. It's in Karnataka. It's a small village in Karnataka. Mom's village is close by to there. So for summer holidays, I always used to go to mom's village, and then I was exposed to the lingo there.
Right.
So there, people used to use Benki as a synonym for awesome.
Right.
So when they have to say something is really nice, they used to say, hey, Benki agide maga. So in translation, that means it's awesome, right? So that's where I'd heard it, and then that had stuck in my mind. And this was way before I started. I'd decided in my mind that if I'm going to start something, I'm going to name it Benki because it means awesome and it's fire. And then I also wanted the cafe that I had to be a place of revolution. Right. We had this huge board in front of the cafe which said, drink coffee, wake up, and stop making stupid people famous. A huge board right at the entrance of the coffee shop. So in the 1600s, cafes were a place of revolution. Cafes were banned in Europe for a certain period of time because people met there to discuss political ideas and start revolutions, bring down the current regime, whatever. So I wanted our cafe to be that. So so that's fire, right? Like that's imbibing fire in a person and then trying to start a revolution. So it was a culmination of all of these things. Yeah.
See, I think I for a long time I did not know the Boston Tea Party or whatever was there. No, it's a revolution.
Yeah.
I thought it was some cafe or something like that previously. See, again, it's a masterclass for me also, for the audience. So some of the challenges, like there was a challenge constraint with money. There was a network that you tried to build. I think this entrepreneur journey itself would be, and even like for choosing a brand, I like people spend so much of effort strategizing, doing things to create a brand. I think it's grounded. You have that what you call that essence of the place that you come along, and that makes it even more special. That's one. What do you think, Suhas? Like you see in the current industry as coffee industry, and what made you stick to the equipment and not the coffee chains?
Well, the main reason is because I felt that I could innovate. I like creating stuff. Some of the things that you see behind you, we manufacture those here. These are my own designs. We were the first ones to manufacture in the country, and probably we're one of the only ones that does such a big range of products in India. So I just felt that I could innovate more this way with equipments than with coffee shops.
And when you talk about these equipments, right? See, the 0 to 1 journey, when you scale, I think we'll come to that more in terms of an educational purpose. Where this is, but I always want to focus on the -1 to 0, because for me, I always tell, right? VCs are like your Marwadis or Banyas. They look at profits. Who are the people who are going to help you from the -1 to 0 journey? There are very few Y Combinator. That's why there is a Y Combinator there, right? Because this is where you either become an entrepreneur or don't become an entrepreneur. From your -1 to 0 journey, when you are conceptualizing this or visualizing this, what are the points that you had to take care of? And could you generalize it so that if someone wants to go through that journey, if not a Benki cafe or a coffee shop, someone wants to do something else in a D2C segment? Because the first thing that when you talk about, obviously this is a B2B for you, is like, what do? Do you do a D2C because let's say a lot of cost is required or something like that? So how do you distinguish between, like, from a pure business sense, what do you enter into?
So I think I would be the wrong person to advise in this regard, because the reason, I'll tell you the reason as well, because I know where I am right now and I completely know where I want to be. We want to be a coffee equipment brand that is completely made in India, right? Eventually, correct? It's a long journey. It's a tough journey, but that's what I want to do. That's what the team is aligned to do as well. But rest of the things I figure out as I go. Correct. So when I started off the business, my goal was very simple. I will do all of the easy tools and accessories to begin with. and start importing the ones that are the most difficult to make. Or I'm not an engineer by education, so I have no clue. So we will start importing. So and then I will figure out things as I go as to how we do different things. Like now we have gotten to manufacture our own grinder for the last 2 years. So we have been able to save up enough funds and then invest into R&D and then develop that. So
This is interesting, right? A non-engineer tries to enter an industry which is fundamentally giants are there. Use your initial network to probably prove that, and then still bootstrapped, still bootstrapped. Uh, I know we were talking. There are a lot of people who approach, but there is a strategic thought for you to how do you want to take it about, and that's a pattern that we can say is probably will work most of the times. Like look at the problem, look at what as a personality you have, and initial experiences. I don't think any other courses or whatever would help. Sitting in your father's shop, dealing with a customer. So that means that gives your all ears to the when you listen to a customer. How do you take feedback, Suhas, in terms of be it from a brand that you are selling the equipment? Do you take every feedback, or how do you filter a feedback?
Feedback could be from multiple people. Like customers give you the best feedback possible. Like I think that's the most invaluable aspect. So if you just listen to your customer, I think 95% of your problems are solved. 5% is your team and yourself. The struggles, the fights that you have in your own mind. That is 5%. And the second feedback is the team, of course. So they understand the ground reality. They know what's happening on the ground. So I would say feedback from the customer is the utmost, and then a small percentage of it is how your competitors react. Is another thing that I always try to notice as to what they do and then how they do it. You get to learn a lot from seeing how they react to whatever that you're doing. Yeah.
How do you look at? You have a vision. You have a current packaging, roasting, all this mechanism. You want to fully do it in India. Do you take it step by step for a vision, or how do you ensure that you are focused?
Got it. So here's what I do. Beginning of the year, I set goals for that year. Simple. I said I'll tell you a little bit about where all we are diversified. We are just in the coffee industry itself, not diversified elsewhere. We have our own farm. We have our own curing works. That is a small dry mill, we call it, very tiny. And then we have our own roastery, coffee roasting unit. We have our own equipments which we manufacture and distribute. Then we have our own cafe, and then we have our own school where we train coffee professionals. Right? So we are into all of these things. So every year I set out to say that, look, I want to do, like this year was, we wanted to do Delhi. We opened an office in Delhi, exactly a similar setup, which is the experience center.
Why did you choose a Delhi, and what makes you choose a specific place?
So, Delhi is a powerhouse of the country, right? Delhi is a gateway to UP, Haryana, Punjab, Himachal, Jammu, all of these places. So that was one of the reasons, and then also for somebody to trust. Like you wouldn't buy a product here in Bangalore from a guy who's sitting in Delhi. You just wouldn't trust him. Unless and until it's these big conglomerates, right? So why should anyone buy from me sitting in Bangalore? They wouldn't trust me. So if I have an office in Delhi, they can come by the store and say, hey, look, here's the problem, please resolve it. So that was one of the main reasons why we opened in Delhi. So this year's goal is was to do Delhi, and we did that. And further to this, we want to set up a factory, which we are. We have the place; it's being built. So these are the goals for this year.
Got it. So, a couple of questions with respect to the coffee culture in India. How is it transforming? Because I believe fundamentally as an entrepreneur, apart from the how you start, you gave inputs about how an entrepreneur should start and everything. Your vision would be to transform this culture. Probably one is an ecosystem level. We are creating jobs by doing a vertical integration or diversifying within your own ecosystem, and then make in India the Atmanirbhar Bharat kind of an approach.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the coffee culture today, and how do you see this changing?
Yeah. So, I would split India into two countries, right? North India and South India. Very controversial, but not to be controversial in terms of coffee consumption, right? We act like two different countries because South India already had a coffee culture going on. Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, and small bits of Kerala already had filter coffee culture going, and then we were all drinking coffee from childhood, correct? So for South Indians, it is about us changing our way of drinking coffee, which is with some of the other Asian countries like Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia. They had coffee, but they were drinking it in a different way. So South India reacts completely different. So here we are trying to change behavior in South India. In North India, it was a different case. They were drinking a completely different beverage, which is chai, and now they're switching to a new beverage, which is coffee. So I feel the North Indian market is a much easier market to penetrate into because you have a blank slate, right? But however, in South India, you're trying to change consumer behavior. So it's a more difficult market to crack into and penetrate into tier 2, tier 3 cities. In South India, coffee cafes are still like a cappuccino latte sort of a cafe is still a aspirational place and an aspirational beverage. But in North India, it's not the case. It's becoming a daily driver for places where they have the disposable income. For the tier 2, tier 3 cities in North India, it's still aspirational beverage, but business lies in some of these big, huge cities. So it is becoming a daily driver now, like chai.
And when you talk about this, you would typically start with the North India then, right? Is it easy to penetrate?
Yes.
And then look at the behavior and then adapt and then go to the South India, right? That's how typically you would look at. What are the trigger points for you to create the whole ecosystem apart from the these things? At what stage do you start that?
So I realized this during the pandemic.
Okay.
So that was a trigger moment for me. We were just an equipment company, and then yes, we did have a small, tiny cafe which was 200 square feet. But that's when it hit me, and I realized that I need to be spread throughout the ecosystem, throughout the whole supply chain ecosystem, right? Because if I had my own farm, there would be no problems with supply of coffee. If I had, we did have our own roastery back then because we were selling roasters and it was more of a roaster in the showroom sort of a deal. But we were roasting our own coffee from day one of starting Benki. I said, when if we are in the whole ecosystem, whole supply chain, then the any downturn, price hike, price low, supply chain disruptions, none of those would affect us. And mainly with the school, with the biggest challenge that the industry faces is attrition, that could be resolved as well. So that was my reasoning, and that's when I decided like this is the company that I want to build.
And a personal question to you, like in this entire journey, which I forgot to ask in the beginning, was like the resistance from the family for you to start becoming an entrepreneur, especially in an area which probably you would not have had a family business in. How did you overcome that, and what would be your suggestions to explain to the family, especially conservative families, because everybody wants to get a safe job? Or how do you talk? How do you explain the safety of it? I know we talked about the worst case scenario, but to make a family understand is a difficult job.
So I was lucky in this way. My dad was very supportive with whatever I did, ever, whenever I did bad or good, right? So, but he also did try to convince me not to get into business. He did try to convince me to take up a job which was secure, which was safe, which was stable, because he had seen ups and downs in his business multiple times. So he always tried to do that. But eventually, when I put my foot down and then I said, "Look, I do want to try to do business, and then if I fail, there is, like I told, explain them the same thing. There is a backup plan always. I can get a job, so don't worry about it because I'm educated enough now." So that way, they did support me with starting a business. That's how I was able to convince them to allow me to do business. Yeah.
Uh, I have few questions, and then probably we could talk about in terms of how do you look at it in future. So, how important is it for you to go global?
Yeah.
Uh, it's obviously would be important from a scale perspective. Uh, how do you, in your mind, decide between sustaining for a period of time uh, and then creating this ecosystem, whatever you're trying to do, and then go global, or look at the fast market, right? And go global and then parallelly build the system. This will come to a typical business questions. I've seen a lot of failed startups, friends, some of the portfolio startups of some of our board members, everything. Uh, when you try to scale, right, especially as a D2C or some of these brands, right, the focus is more not on the profitability, your cash burn or something. It's more on capturing the market. What is your belief in terms of, because you don't come from the typical B school thought process, you don't have some VC guy who probably doesn't even know the way you would have created a business, the passion with which you would have done. I'm instructing you, not even advising you. How do you look at it? Like in your mind, when you look at scale, global vision, not to talk about these words about like I'll expand it there and all, but just the thought process of when you would want to do it, so that that gives the inputs in terms of how do you think, and probably they can our audience can take some cues from it. Yeah.
So we did expand overseas, right? We opened our offices in Dubai, which we shut in 2023 October. I mean, it was a good decision and a bad decision. I got to learn was one that I'm bootstrapped. I can't have the resources to be in two countries with enough employees, with enough infrastructure, etc. Even though we were breaking even and then we were not burning any money, it was challenging to spend more and more time there because India itself is this huge whale that needs to be captured, and we are nowhere close to saturation. I think we will only talk about saturation in the coffee industry after 10 years, right? So I said one country at a time. There is so much to do in India, and India itself is like multiple nations. So I said, let's conquer this first, and then let's look at heading outside.
Since it's a conversation, that's what I call it. It's similar experience. We started off in Dubai. Then I think we realized similar reasons. We are bootstrapped with initial industry leaders investing in us. Let's focus on Bangalore. If you asked me 6-8 months back, I would have told my market is Middle East, India. Next, I will go to Southeast Asia. Today, I will say in Bangalore, Jayanagar, JP Nagar, and Indira Nagar. Probably 1 week down the line, I might say only Jayanagar because of the amount of cafes is there. I think the more narrower the approach, I think the success is higher. Probably this might not fit into your Som Sam category of some of the players who would want to be your this thing. But again, I think that's the journey everybody should take. See, I think what this conversation also highlights is there's a journey of -1 to 0 where the supporters are different, 0 to 1, and then probably when you want to scale the big money, then the institutional investors will come in. So as a young entrepreneur, if you are starting out, probably you didn't have a startup background, but you had some business background, probably not totally related. I think that's how probably you should look at. If you would like to give, I would not call it as an advice or something, like couple of points. If someone is going from trying to start up from scratch, right, in terms of cultivating that mindset, what are the hindrances in your mind? Which probably would have stopped you from doing it, but what triggered you to push forward still in challenging times when you started and also during your journey?
Right. So I always tell this to myself. Like I even have it tattooed on my hand. All I say is, what is the worst that can happen? If I'm okay with the worst that can happen, then I go ahead and do it. As simple as that. So this was the biggest hindrance for me when I started. So I was offered a assistant South India head at Levi's when I finished my masters. I landed a job in a couple of other companies. That was the worst that could have happened, which is not so bad, right? Me being in a job doing 9 to 6 was the worst that could happen. So that was the biggest hindrance. So that's what I tell everybody when they start something new. If you're okay with the worst that can happen, then just go ahead and do it. Even today, what's the worst that can happen? The worst that can happen is I have to get a job that pays me 3 to 4 lakhs a month. Right? This I'm very confident of getting. I think my ex-boss will hire me back. Correct? After like 7 years of me being away.
So this is one of the points which I tell at least some of my corporate friends. See, I always say, right, not everybody needs to be an entrepreneur, but if you have that fear of failure, I think that's something you should look at. Whatever you said, right? Look at the worst possible case, and the worst possible case could still be a better situation, better situation, and so many other this thing. Uh, so what makes you feel in India? It's another. Suhas has to come up, right? What do you think as an ecosystem we are lacking, or do you think today the ecosystem is pretty good? Because we recently had Makhana, one of the it's from again one of the rural Indian things, beautifully packaged product that is going out. I somehow feel personally the city audience as is less uh, I don't know what you call it as less. I'm not say less passionate, less have less of patience or that grit to do it. They want to find a easy way. But if you go to the tier two, they are more passionate. They are more ready to wait. How do you see this in the current ecosystem when you see in the market in your space itself? When you see so many cafes, you advise so many cafes also. How do you see that?
Well, if I didn't get the question quite
See,
right.
what I'm saying is when you see most of these cafe owners, right? See, are you seeing them hesitant about some things? Do you see more entrepreneurs should come, and what is stopping them from coming? From an ecosystem, ecosystem is already there. According to me, today is the right time to do a startup. Not everybody should do, but what do you think is stopping them? Are you seeing that?
Absolutely. I think the city folk have a certain lifestyle. Um, let's say you're at step 8, you don't want to go down to step 5 with your lifestyle, with how the comfort level that you're living in, etc. But any business, I feel, small or big, even if you've been funded, you've raised a seed capital of like 10 crores, the owner cannot not get his hands dirty, right? That is what the city folk don't want to do. They don't want to get their hands dirty. So many of the cafes that I see, they don't want to educate themselves, and then they don't want to run the business. They just want to get like, okay, a coffee consult, and they want to get, I mean we consult, right? So this is shooting in my own foot, but that is the truth. They just want to get a coffee consultant, they want to get like a food consultant on board, and then start this business. Absolutely the wrong way to do it. Absolutely the wrong way. Yes, after even me, I would need a consultant tomorrow, because after a certain point, I will hit the ceiling, and then I will not know how to scale this business. I would probably have to get a business consultant on board later on, but to learn more. But to begin with, if I don't know how to do business, if I don't know coffee, I can't run a coffee business. That's the major problem with the city folk. We are all I'm a city guy. I'm born and brought up in Bangalore. My native is a small town, but I was born and brought up here. But I see this with my friends, I see this with my nephew, niece, family itself, right? Not to blame somebody else, even my own family, it's like that. So but the tier 2 city, no, they've gotten their hands dirty. They would have seen both sides of the life, the comfort life, or in and around them, they would see people struggling. Even though they might be well off, they could see people struggling. So they know.
Is media also to be blamed, or the social media? Because you see everyday news of someone raised their money. So I think because you are always say, right, you are the average of the 5 people around you. Today it's your average of what social media feeds you. 5 social media channels. So what I'm seeing is probably most of these guys are getting influenced by like, okay, it's pretty easy to raise some money. Let's raise the money and then do the things. It's a totally wrong way. If some VC is supporting that mindset, I think probably we have to blame the VC. But again, they are putting their bets on this. They have also raised from their LPs. Build a product, understand the business, then raise the money. Probably, I think unless you articulate that, but it might not be a great media news, because the problem is the medias are also need the TRP there, be it the social media or whatever. I think in this noise, I think there will be few Suhas. We will do it the right way, and that's where we will probably take some of these stories to the depths of India. And our vision as entrepreneurs of Bharat is also to create or enable more entrepreneurs, and that's something that we would want to do. As closing comments, Suhas, would what would you want to say uh, if you were to restart again? Would you want to change any part of your journey?
Uh, Not really. I think I've had a lot of fun. It's been like amazing this past 7 years from when we have started. I don't think I would have changed anything, because everything bad that happened, there were plenty that bad that happened, have has taught me a lot, and then made the company stronger, made our team stronger. So I don't think I would change anything. And then I also don't live with any regrets. So I think the journey has been perfect.
Thanks, Suhas, and it was very nice interacting with you. And I think for me, the takeaway has been that what you said, right? Worst case, what can happen? Starting a journey, and I like that approach of. I think how much do you spend? You said when we were offline talking about marketing.
So online marketing, we have spent about 7 to 8 thousand rupees in the last 7 years.
I think that's something for the next gen entrepreneurs. 7,000, 8,000 rupees on online marketing. Even I had done that mistake. So, so it's not about being in the media, how many likes or shares. It's about doing that day in and day out, solving that right problem, and a journey that has to be lived. Have the market, but don't get bogged down by the excels of songs. And do the business, things will work. Thanks a lot, Suhas, and very nice.
Thank you so much.